Scotty Kilmer's been fixing cars almost as long as I've been alive, and he's usually spot on. But even the legends miss things. I'm Mike Anderson from Garage IQ, and today we're looking at 5 things Scotty doesn't know, or at least doesn't tell you the whole truth about. And wait till you watch number 5, it might completely change how you think about engine oil. Number 1, CVTs are always junk? Let's start with one of Scotty's biggest pet peeves, the CVT. According to him, these things are basically pre-programmed to explode the second your warranty runs out. And look, he's not totally wrong. Some CVTs, like the early Jatco ones in Nissans, were genuinely awful. They slipped, overheated, and shredded belts. And when they died, it was game over. Replacing them cost more than what the car was worth. But here's where Scotty oversimplifies it. Not all CVTs are built the same. Take Toyota's e-CVTs for example. They don't even use a traditional belt and pulley system. Instead, they've got a planetary gear set and a couple of motor generators doing the work. No belt to stretch, no steel chain to snap. These things are so reliable you can find Prius taxis with over 400,000 miles still running the original transmission like it's nothing. It's not just durable, it's practically bulletproof. The same goes for Honda. Their newer CVTs are way better than they get credit for. As long as you change the fluid on time, they can easily go 150 to 200,000 miles without breaking a sweat. The Civic, Accord, and CR-V are all running CVTs that hold up just fine when treated right. And some of them even drive pretty well too, especially with Honda's simulated gear shifts that make them feel a little more natural. Scotty's videos don't usually mention those. He tends to point to the worst examples, which, to be fair, were very bad, but he paints the whole CVT world with the same brush. The reality? CVTs have evolved. Some are still junk, sure, but others are smart, efficient, and crazy reliable. So if you're shopping for a car and see CVT on the spec sheet, don't automatically run for the hills. Just make sure you know which CVT you're dealing with, because Toyota's CVTs will probably outlive you. Number 2, never buy a car with a turbo? If there's one thing that gets Scotty's blood pressure up faster than a Jatco CVT, it's a turbocharged engine. If you've seen his videos on this, you already know the drill. According to Scotty, turbos are just time bombs bolted to your engine. They overheat, they break, they cost a fortune to fix, and they're only there so automakers can get away with smaller engines and bigger fuel economy numbers on paper. That's the pitch. And honestly, he's got a point. Early turbos were kinda sketchy. Back in the day, they were slapped onto engines that weren't really designed to handle them. Poor heat management, inconsistent oil pressure, and people not knowing how to take care of them. It was a recipe for failure. Run a turbo hard and shut off the car immediately? That leftover heat would cook the oil inside the turbo bearings. Do that enough times, and boom, turbo's toast. But here's what Scotty doesn't say. Modern turbocharged engines are a whole different animal. Take Mazda's turbocharged 2.5-liter engines. These are low-boost, high-reliability setups that prioritize smooth power and efficiency over raw output. They're not chasing high RPMs or wringing every ounce of boost. They're engineered with longevity in mind. The same goes for Volkswagen's newer small turbos, and even Hyundai's 1.6T in the Kona and Elantra N-line. These aren't racing turbos, they're daily driver workhorses. And then there's Ford's EcoBoost lineup, which Scotty absolutely hates. But here's the thing. The issues with early EcoBoost engines like the 1.6-liter were real. Coolant leaks, carbon buildup, and some turbo failures. But Ford updated the design. The newer 2.0-liter and 2.3-liter EcoBoosts, especially the ones you'll find in newer Mustangs and Explorers, are much more refined. As long as you keep up with oil changes and don't ignore the warning lights, they're pretty solid. The real key with turbos today isn't avoiding them, it's understanding the maintenance they require. Regular oil changes with quality synthetic oil, letting the engine cool down a bit after hard driving, and using the recommended fuel, which, yes, sometimes means premium, but that's not a flaw, it's just part of the deal. Here's what's funny, turbocharged engines are everywhere now. Automakers aren't using them just to cheat emissions tests. They're using them because they give you the power of a V6 with the fuel efficiency of a 4-cylinder. And for most drivers, that's a win-win. Now, are naturally aspirated engines simpler and often more bulletproof? Sure. There's no denying that. But to say all turbos are trash, that's like saying all dogs bite. It's just not true. So no, Scotty, not all turbos are created equal. Some are junk, some are brilliant, just like CVTs. just like people. Number 3. Oil additives are always snake oil? Alright, time to open up the bottle on another classic Scotty rant. Oil additives. If you've ever watched more than 2 of his videos, you've definitely heard this one before. Additives are snake oil. They're scams. Just use good oil and change it regularly. And to be fair, he's not wrong most of the time. The shelves at your local auto parts store are packed with miracle-in-a-bottle products promising to quiet engine noise, boost horsepower, clean your valves, and probably fix your love life too. And yeah, a lot of those claims are total nonsense. But here's the thing, not all additives are created equal, and some of them actually work. You just have to know when and why to use them. Let's start with ZDDP, that's zinc dialkyl dithiophosphate, if you're feeling fancy. It's a compound that used to be in motor oil by default, back in the days when engines had flat tappet camshafts. Why? Because ZDDP creates a sacrificial layer on metal surfaces that prevents wear. And that layer is crucial for high-friction parts like lifters and cam lobes in those old-school engines. The problem is that over time, oil manufacturers started reducing ZDDP content to protect catalytic converters. Great for emissions, not so great if you're driving a 1970s muscle car with a big block and flat tappets. That's where additives come in. A ZDDP additive can literally save your engine in that scenario, no exaggeration. Same story with MOS2, or molybdenum disulfide. It's a solid lubricant that's been proven to reduce friction and wear in high-pressure applications. Liquid Moly makes a famous version that's popular in Europe, and it's not just some snake oil gimmick. Plenty of mechanics and oil analysts have tested it, and it holds up. But here's the catch, and this is probably what Scotty's getting at. Most people don't need these additives. If you're driving a modern car with a modern engine and you're using high-quality synthetic oil that already meets the manufacturer's spec, you're covered. The additives you need are already blended into the oil at the factory. Adding more could mess with the balance and do more harm than good. So yes, if you're dumping a random bottle of engine treatment into your 2022 Toyota Camry because the label said smooths engine operation, you're probably wasting your money. But if you're running an old-school V8 or you're restoring a classic, or you're working on a flat tappet cam motor, additives like ZDDP or MOS2 are essential, not optional. Here's what Scotty doesn't always explain. It's not that additives are bad, it's that most people don't need them. And if you're not careful, you could end up doing more harm than good. But for those edge cases, the vintage engines, the high-performance builds, the neglected motors with noisy lifters, additives can absolutely make a difference. So yeah, Scotty's half right. There's a ton of snake oil out there, but to say all additives are scams, that's like saying all mechanics are crooks. It's just not true. Number 4. EVs are useless and gimmicky? Now, if there's one thing Scotty loves more than bashing CVTs or yelling about oil changes, it's roasting electric cars. Seriously, just search Scotty Kilmer EV and grab some popcorn. You'll hear everything from EVs are useless to they'll fall apart after 100,000 miles, or even these things are just expensive RC toys. And hey, it's entertaining. Scotty knows how to put on a show, but once again, we've got to zoom out and look at the full picture, because while some of his concerns are valid, the way he frames EVs, that's where things go off the rails. Let's start with the basics. EVs aren't going away. Whether you love them, hate them, or still think they're powered by Elon's ego, the future is clearly shifting. Automakers like GM, Ford, Volvo, and even Dodge are pouring billions into electric lineups. This isn't a trend, it's a transition. Now, Scotty often brings up EV reliability. What happens when the battery dies? It's 10 grand to replace it. And yes, EV batteries can be expensive, but what he doesn't mention is that most EVs come with an 8 to 10 year battery warranty, covering up to 100,000 miles or more. Some go well beyond that. Look at Teslas with over 200,000 miles still running on their original battery pack. And yes, they still charge and drive just fine. He also skips over the maintenance advantage. No oil changes, no timing belts, no exhaust systems, no fuel pumps. EVs eliminate a lot of the things that typically break on gas cars. Sure, they've got their own quirks, like brake calipers sticking from lack of use, or heat pumps acting up in extreme cold, but the powertrain itself, it's shockingly low maintenance. Another thing he loves to bring up is range anxiety. You'll get stuck on the side of the road. And that used to be a valid fear back when EVs had tiny batteries and charging stations were few and far between. But in 2025, you've got models doing 300 plus miles on a charge, and public charging networks are growing fast. Heck, some gas stations now have more EV chargers than gas pumps. And at home, plug it in, go to bed, and you've got a full tank in the morning. And let's talk about price. Scotty often slams EVs as overpriced tech toys. But again, he's missing context. Models like the Chevy Bolt, Nissan Leaf, or even the Tesla Model 3 are well within reach for average buyers. Plus, EVs have lower running costs, less maintenance, cheaper fuel, and in many states, serious tax incentives. You can save thousands over time. Now, are EVs perfect? No. Charging still takes longer than filling up at a pump. Towing drains range fast. And rural areas with limited charging infrastructure still pose a real challenge. Plus, not everyone wants to drive a car that feels like an iPad on wheels. Fair enough. But to dismiss EVs as nothing more than a gimmick, that's a stretch. A lot of the hate comes from nostalgia, from people who love the sound of an engine and the feel of a downshift. Totally valid, but just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not a viable option for someone else. Number 5. Oil change every 3,000 miles? Alright, this is it. The hill Scotty will die on. If you've watched even one Scotty Kilmer video in the last decade, you've heard him say it. Change your oil every 3,000 miles, period, end of story. And to his credit, he's been saying that since the Clinton administration, so at least he's consistent. But let's talk about it, because this is where old school wisdom collides head-on with modern engine technology. Back in the day when we had carbureted engines, cheap conventional oil, and no real filtration tech, 3,000 miles made sense. Oil would get dirty, break down, and lose viscosity fast. Engines ran rich, tolerances were looser, and sludge buildup was a real threat. If you wanted your car to last, you changed the oil a lot. But fast forward to today, and that world doesn't really exist anymore. Most modern cars now run synthetic oil, and we're not talking about fancy race car stuff. Even base model Toyotas and Hyundais come from the factory with full synthetic blends. These oils are engineered to last 7,500 to 10,000 miles easily, some even longer. They resist heat, oxidation, and sludge way better than the old stuff ever could. Plus, engines today are smarter. They've got oil life monitors that track everything from temperature to driving style to let you know exactly when your oil needs changing. And guess what? Most of them don't blink until you're past 7,000 miles. You think automakers would let you go that far if it risked your engine? Not a chance. They'd be drowning in warranty claims. Even the manuals back Scotty into a corner. Open the glove box, flip to maintenance, and you'll see 5 to 10,000 mile intervals, right there in black and white. Sure, they'll still tell you to change it sooner under severe duty, like constant stop and go or heavy towing. But for the average driver, 3,000 miles is overkill. And let's not forget the environmental and financial side of this. If every driver stuck to Scotty's 3,000 mile rule, we'd be dumping millions more gallons of used oil every year. Plus, people would be spending money they really don't need to, especially during a time when everything costs more. Now, to be fair to Scotty, there are scenarios where the 3,000 mile rule still holds water. If you've got an old beater, or you live somewhere dusty and hot, or you track your car and redline it regularly, more frequent oil changes can help. Oil is cheap insurance, and if it gives you peace of mind, go for it. But for 90% of drivers out there, following that 3,000 mile rule regularly is like still using a flip phone because smartphones might burn out the battery. It's outdated advice, based on an outdated world. So yeah, Scotty, we get where you're coming from, but it's time to update the gospel. The oil has changed. The engines have changed. The intervals? They've changed too. So what have we learned? Scotty's a legend, and his passion for cars is infectious. He's saved a lot of people a lot of headaches over the years. But even legends get stuck in their ways. Whether it's CVTs, turbos, oil additives, EVs, or oil changes, they're always more nuanced than a 5-minute rant can capture. If you've made it this far, here's your reward. Next time someone says, "Scotty says all turbos are junk," you can hit them with the full story and maybe, just maybe, save a perfectly good car from being unfairly trashed. And hey, if you're still changing your oil every 3,000 miles, we need to talk.